Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to this week's Mental Monday. This week I want to finish responding to the comment that I got when I talked about how I was feeling after doing some major decluttering and asked for any questions or topics you guys would like to see. And the question had two parts. One was about anxiety. The other was about kind of dealing with the trauma and post-traumatic issues after major traumatic events like losing a loved one, a divorce, things like that. And there was also an element of dealing with sleep deprivation and coping while also having to deal with daily life while going through those things. So I want to talk about that today. The PTSD side I have not discussed in great detail as far as major traumatic life events. I mostly talked about it with the symptomatic side and how to treat it and how you would go about dealing with finding a professional and things like that. The first thing I want to say about PTSD, post-traumatic stress in general, because I feel like PTSD itself comes with a connotation of a major diagnosis, and it has to be severe and it looks a certain way versus there are actually little ways to be experiencing post-traumatic stress. Anything that triggers you is triggering post-traumatic stress after a traumatic event like losing a loved one or going through a major divorce, things like that. I have talked about my experiences with PTSD-ish symptoms after losing my brother. I had trouble driving for a while after. It felt weird. I was nervous. I have never fully looked at car accidents the same. And that's kind of my story with it. I haven't experienced anything else anywhere close to that. So there are a lot of events that can trigger PTSD. It's mostly associated with veterans and going to war. It's also majorly a part of abuse and a survivor healing. And it very much is also experienced in losing a loved one, like me losing my brother, or going through a major divorce. Because a divorce, if you think about it, is a loss. You are grieving something, you are losing something, and it is painful, and it is not fun, and it is stressful, and the whole long list of things that you're going through when an event like that happens in your life. So my first step with that is finding a professional. This will help you gauge what's going on, what you maybe need to put in place to help you. It'll also be giving you that outlet to discuss what's going on, even if you only go for 1 or 2 sessions. It is more important than I could even ever put into words to process those emotions in those times. Because those emotions do not go away once the event is over. And a lot of times there's so much emotion, there's so many things to process and grasp that you're dealing with the after effects for so long after. I really believe that should be the first step, because that gets you started with whatever the path might need to look like after that. If it's to a point where they're like, yeah, let's for now have you come back every week or so. Or if it's hey, try these things and I'll see you in another couple weeks and see how you're doing. We can gauge how we want to move forward. or just having that professional's contact information on hand so that you know you have somebody to reach out to if you start feeling overwhelmed, if you start feeling like you need somebody to talk to, you have their information at hand, you can contact them. And I feel like having a professional's information on hand for anybody could be really important and good, but especially when you are very, very actively going through something, at least knowing who you have around you is super important. And after you've gone through that, they may give you tactics to try, like breathing exercises, like I said. Aromatherapy is game-changing. Things like that can really be helpful. It is also helpful to try to work through what you maybe need to put in as far as boundaries during that time, especially while you're still actively going through it. There are going to be a lot of sensitive areas for you. There are going to be things that trigger you. There are going to be things that you just feel really easily overwhelmed by. And knowing that, and knowing maybe what boundaries to put in for yourself for that time period can be important. Not that you're avoiding dealing with the emotions, but just there's no reason to add to the stress more so than you're already dealing with at that time. That is why a lot of the professionals will help you process emotions fully after, and they can kind of help you gauge with what is healthily appropriate to try to work through right now. What areas do I really need to just be gentle with myself and give myself more space with that? And that's honestly the biggest way of learning yourself that becomes important in that. What triggers you? What overwhelms you? What brings you back to what memories you are experiencing? Because a lot of the time, a scent or a phrase or a place will trigger you, and then you're back to experiencing those same emotions and that whole mental space you were in when whatever the event that happened is. That's why for me it was being in a car because my brother died in a car accident. For a divorce, it might be living in the same house you live together in. It might be seeing a lot of people you saw when you were together. Those can be triggering. Not that you automatically want to avoid them, but understanding those things do trigger me. So going into those situations knowing this is going to be more difficult. I need to be more intentional in this moment. Not everything that triggers you needs to be avoided. But you also don't want to be purposefully adding more stress to yourself while you're trying to get through things. Because especially in light of a divorce, it can be a long process. It can be a very long process. It can be a huge, huge amount of emotions and range of emotions. And, you know, there are times to just be gentle with yourself and give yourself more breathing space. And that is where a professional really helps. They can help you gauge that. They can help you learn yourself in those ways and learn what might be best for you at that time. And just like with anything, seasons are going to change. Seasons are going to be different. Things are going to look different in different parts of the process of whatever it is you're going through. I have experienced a shift in how I handle things through pretty much every phase of grieving. And that is totally normal. That is just completely how we work, and that is okay. And sometimes that can mean reevaluating each time things shift a little and going, is this still what works best for me? Or is this now, instead of where it was working before, is this now creating a block for me that I can shift things and maybe help myself a little more now with the shifts that happened? So those I feel like are the biggest things to think about. Now, going into more detail on what post-traumatic stress can look like is one thing. I did do a whole video on that, so I will link that video. It was a huge light bulb moment for me when I realized that I felt like post-traumatic stress was part of what I was dealing with. And that took time to process through. Don't diagnose yourself with my video. Don't assume that that's what's happening. Everybody is so different. Each situation and person reacts to things so differently. I never want my Mental Monday videos to replace a professional. It cannot replace the professional. So if you feel like you need to see somebody, like I mentioned, please reach out to somebody in your area. They want to help. That is what they've spent their time studying to do. That is what they dedicate their work and their time to. And I just cannot express enough how much professionals really just want to help. And it's just an amazing feeling. So, okay, that is what I have to say about PTSD. In amongst life events that happen, I feel like it doesn't get talked about in that scenario quite like it could, because it's always thought of with veterans that have gone through war, which of course is its whole own topic and very much needing to be paid attention to. But that's not the only way that you get PTSD. That's not the only way that you experience post-traumatic stress at all. There are other traumatic events that people go through that can lead to some of those same experiences that also still need to be worked through. So, I hope this helped. If you have any further questions or pieces of this you would like to see more about, leave that in the comments below. I really hope this helped. If it did, give it a thumbs up and share it, and make sure to be subscribed and click notifications on so you see when the next video comes out. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye!